Hey everyone, Mike here in the BFH garage. Today I got my Jeep up on the rack because I need to replace the O2 sensors. The oxygen sensors are a common issue, or can be a common issue on these Jeep Wranglers, and it could be for a slew of reasons. It could be a bad catalytic converter, it could be a bad O2 sensor, it could be a short in your wiring harness, it could be all sorts of things. So what I'm going to do today is actually replace the O2 sensors because I've had an O2 sensor code since I bought this Jeep. And if you recall, I bought this as a salvage title. The check engine light showed that O2 sensor, and I figured I would eventually get to it. Now, recently I did just replace the throttle position sensor, and that did make the code go away for a while. And then on my last trip up on Holy Cross, the O2 sensor code came back. So what I'm going to do now is I have to get the skid plate down, and I'm going to show you where these O2 sensors are and how easy they are to get to. And I say easy with a grain of salt because if they are seized in there or rusted in there or corroded in there, or whatever it's going to be, they can be a real bear. So let's go take a look. As you can see, I have my Under Armour already off. Now, before I go up here and show you the O2 sensors and all that, I want to point out quickly my cross member. I have a separate cross member that I built, and I have a video on it, and I'm going to post it at the end of this video, or you can just go into the video catalog and you'll find it in there. But the nice thing about having a separate cross member is that I don't have to support the transmission separate from the belly skid, so it makes it very, very good for ease of maintenance. And in this case here, you can see it holds up everything fine. I have my skid plate off, and now I can access everything under here. Coming underneath the Jeep here, you're going to see my O2 sensor right here. That is this thing right here. Let me see if we get a better picture of it there. Right there is my Upstream O2 sensor. Now, depending on your year of Jeep Wrangler, you're going to have one, maybe two of those Upstream. When you come back here, you're going to see one here, and this is behind the catalytic converter. So that's going to be your downstream O2 sensor. Now, when you look at these, it's just a welded bung that your O2 sensor screws into, and you tighten it down. That's really all there is to it. There's a plug up here that you have to disconnect, and then you take whatever size wrench it is. This one here is going to be a 7/8, and these can screw right out without an issue. However, like I said, they can get corroded, they can get stuck, and it becomes a big, big problem. So now on this one here, I know this one comes out nice and easily. The other one I have back here, post catalytic converter, this one I know for a fact is stuck so hard that I'm gonna have to remove my exhaust and put it out on the bench in order to get it off, because I'm gonna have to apply some heat to it. And if the heat doesn't work, then what I'm gonna have to do is cut it out, re-weld in a new bung. And the only way I'm gonna figure that out is to get it out on the bench. So first thing I'm gonna do, disconnect this one, pull this one out, and then I'm going to insert the new sensor, and then I'm gonna worry about that post-catalytic converter sensor. When it comes to sensors on these TJs, they can be extremely finicky. Sometimes these sensors only last a little while, maybe 1,000 or 5,000 miles or something like that, and they go out again. So I can tell you that from my history of looking at the Jeep enthusiast forums and stuff like that, you want to stay away from the Bosch O2 sensors. Those are not a good fit for these TJs. Most people tell you with these type of sensors, go with the OEM Mopar version. Now the problem is trying to find Mopar O2 sensors for a vehicle that's over 20 years old. Pretty much everything now is getting made out of China, and it's just going to be what it's going to be. So a good substitute for that was going to be either the NGK or the NTK sensors. Now trying to find those, sometimes they're either out of stock or the model numbers changed and now everything's out of date. So what I did is I went to Rock Auto and I found some O2 sensors made by Walker. Walker's a reputable brand. However, I've not tried these as far as O2 sensors. I've used them for other exhaust parts, such as a muffler and tailpipe and stuff like that. Now, the nice thing about Walker, at least what it shows, is that they are made to the exact same spec as the OEM version, and these are all made in America. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that these are going to do the trick for what I need and last. There's only one way to tell, though. Now, when you go to order your sensors, I have two of them here. They're two different part numbers, so make sure you do your homework, whether you need upstream sensors or downstream sensors. And I marked right on the top, upstream, downstream, so that way if I open up the box, I'm not confused as to which one goes where. So if you have more than one upstream sensor, make sure that you're getting the right sensor in the right location. That's pretty important for this. So I'm gonna pull one of these out of the box. I'm gonna pull up the upstream first because that's the first one I'm gonna replace. And as you look at the sensor here, you know, packaged well. I don't need to do a whole unboxing and all that. And here's another key component too, is they give you the copper anti-seize, and that will help keep those from getting seized into that bung. That way, if you ever need to do another sensor change again, they come out pretty easily. So the thing I like about it is they give you a nice zip tie to help hold all this in. The sensor itself looks to be in great quality. I mean, everything's OEM. It even has the adapter for your, or not the adapter, but the push pin for your plug to hold it in place. So looking forward to installing these. I hope these do well. There's only one way to find out though. So first things first, I need to get that upstream sensor out, and then we're gonna get this one ready to go in. The very first thing you want to do, especially if you're on a lift, is to disconnect this sensor from the top side. So you have to get up under the hood, trace the wire to where the connector is, get that disconnected, and then you can pull it down here. Now this one here uses a 7/8, and like I said, I know it comes loose because when I first got the Jeep, I was seeing if they were stuck or not. So yeah, see, as you can see, that thing is coming right apart. Now, you see I'm using an open-end wrench here. They actually make an O2 sensor removal wrench that's it's kind of like a flare wrench in the sense for a brake line, that it gets on multiple sides and it gives you a little bit more power to get that thing out, a little more torque. I don't have one of those. I like to use my simple tools because I know a lot of other people don't want to spend money on tools, so that's why I'm doing it this way here. As you can see now, this comes right out of there, and that's all there is to it. I want to be very, very clear. I understand these things normally don't come out that easy. For you people up there in the Rust Belt, I can't imagine the stuff you go through to do this. So I get that, but either way, your end goal is to get this sensor out, whatever it takes. So if you have to pull your exhaust off, add some heat to it, then do that. So the very next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to compare sensors, make sure that everything is the correct size, thread pitch, all that. Everything looks to be good. So I'm going to go ahead and install this one. And before I do that though, I want to make sure I get some copper anti-seize on there. We'll get back over there. We'll get this one installed. When you apply your anti-seize, you only want to get it on the threads. You don't want to get it on that sensor. Okay, route your sensor wire up, make sure you're staying clear of your exhaust manifold. And if you look here, you're going to see that you have these notches. This thing only goes in one way. So match these notches up. And then it presses right in. Make sure you hear that click. And then you can turn this around. You have your push pin, goes right through the bracket. And that holds it in place away from everything. That's all there is to that. Now it's time to get to the rear sensor. Here comes the real challenge for me. I've tried to get this O2 sensor out of there before. I know it is in there very tight, and I don't think I'm going to be able to get it from here. So I'm going to skip this step of trying to remove the sensor here because I know for a fact that thing is buried in there. Now, the problem I have is I just connected my front O2 sensor, but because of the way I had to run my exhaust to get over my cross member and all that, I'm going to have to undo my front O2 sensor. The nice thing is I can just undo it from the sensor itself and let it hang there. I have to undo my exhaust up here. I have to undo my exhaust right here, and I have to take out this entire front section of the exhaust to get that O2 sensor. So I'm going to pull that out, and then we'll get to working on that bung. I got the exhaust out. You know, it's a pain in the butt. I have mine set up to where it comes out easily, but if you're working on your back, expect some issues if you have to go this far to get an O2 sensor out. And I know you guys up there in the Rust Belt are laughing at me. I get it. So what I'm going to do here, I've tried working this with that 7/8 box wrench. It doesn't want to move, so I'm not going to damage the grip surface there anymore. What I'm going to do, since I know this O2 sensor is bad, is I'm going to get my grinder, I'm going to cut it off here, and I'm going to put my 7/8 inch socket on here, and then I'm going to use my big Milwaukee impact. And if I can't break that with 1,400 foot-pounds of braking force, then we are going to have to start applying heat. So these things can be a bear. You just got to work through until you get it done. You can see there, that took a tremendous amount of heat to get that thing undone, but I finally got that sensor out of there. I'm going to get these threads cleaned up, get this thing reinstalled. Actually, I'll install the sensor out here since it'll be easier, and then we'll throw it back into the Jeep once it cools down. I know it looks like I left out a lot, and a lot that I left out was simply getting the exhaust back up there and into place. So I didn't believe you guys needed to see me struggle with that. But now that we have it back in place, we have the other O2 sensor that was already installed out on the bench. I just made that connection. Now coming back to this one to get this one in. So if you put it in straight like this and you start twisting it, it's going to twist all those wires. So a little trick is to pre-twist it the opposite way, and then when you install it, it will straighten itself out as you go, and then the wires won't be in a bind. So pretty straight up like that. Get your wrench, tighten it up, and that is all there is to that. It'd be easy for me to come up here and say, and that's all there is to do to change out your O2 sensors, but I promise you it's probably going to be a headache, especially if you're not on a lift. I struggled even on the lift. I had to pull my exhaust out, but I knew that because that other one was stuck beyond. I had to get that glowing red hot in order to get that thing out. But if you're doing this on your back, it's going to be tough. Lesson learned on this one, and you know what? I've learned this lesson more than probably a dozen times. The other guys I will with make fun of me because I tend to be on the cheap side of things. But the one thing I'll say is buy the damn tool. If you're going to do something that requires a special tool, whether it's a brake pliers or an O2 sensor wrench, just buy the thing. It will make it a lot easier. This does show you, however, that you can get it done with basic tools. It's just not as pretty or easy. So with that being said, next thing I need to do now is clear out my check engine light, get all that cleared out. I'm going to run around driving for a bit to let the system relearn itself, and hopefully it keeps that check engine light off and it runs a little bit smoother. I've been having a lot of idle issues. The TPS sensor fixed most of that, but I think I can do a little bit better with these new O2 sensors, and I also have new plugs and wires and a distributor cap ready to go in as well. So hopefully all that works, but O2 sensors, now you know.